All right, everybody. Can you guys hear me? Are we good? No static? No nothing? Are we good? I know you guys are there. We have new technology today, so working through it a little bit, but let me know if you're here and where you're from. Put it in the chat. Really would love to. All right, awesome. Good. We are good. If you guys have watched my last video, you know we had a little bit of technical difficulty, and now we have new technology. So we are hoping this is going to be the thing that we need for streaming. All right, welcome everybody. All right, sounds great, terrific. So welcome everybody. I'm Kati Spaniak, and I am the host of the Sell Your Home YouTube channel, which I'm thinking you guys have watched before. We are live, and I'm going to be talking today about this NAR settlement and kind of what you need to know as a buyer and seller. It's a little more, I don't do a lot of day-to-day content, but I thought this was really, really important for my sellers out there who will be buyers as well. Just some logistics. Warwick, who is my right hand, my business partner, is behind the scenes. He's manning the chat. And so he will make sure if you guys have any questions or need any links or anything like that, feel free to throw it in there. I will also look at that, but I'm kind of talking about this as we go. So we're just going to start it out. This is a lot of free flow conversation. I'm just going to kind of talk. I want you to ask me your questions on this because this is complicated. This topic is actually very complicated. I've been following it for a couple of years. So, there's a lot of research online, but what I'm really, really going to give to you is I'm going to give you the honest truth and my perspective as an agent and how this looks for a buyer and a seller out there. What does this really mean to you? Are you really going to make more money when you sell or buy? What does that look like? All right. Thanks everybody for saying hello. Please definitely put your comments in there. Tell me where you're from. I am excited to get into it. All right. So what happened? This is a really, really big conversation about what happened is that the NAR, National Association of Realtors, was sued along with a bunch of other brokerages a couple of years ago. And what they basically said was that real estate agents, NAR, and brokerages have tried to fix their commission. And that was it. And so there was an antitrust, which then the Department of Justice joined in as well and took a stance on the case too. So it's been going for a couple of years. Like we knew this was coming. About this time last year, I actually was at a seminar and somebody said, this has legs. And I was like, really, this has legs? And they're like, yeah, this could be really, really a game changer for the industry. And in October, a judgment was handed down that NAR and the other brokerages that were sued were guilty of this, of antitrust. So they rendered a verdict for $1.8 billion, $1.8 billion. And I think as an industry, as an agent who's just an agent, I have no ability to understand some of the stuff at the very, very high level. It was pretty stunning to hear that, agents were guilty because a lot of what has come out in the news media is not really correct. And we're going to talk about that. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's just not quite right what they're saying. And you can tell the people who are writing the articles really, truly don't have necessarily an understanding of how this really works at a minute level. So what happened to get this conversation rolling is that was the judgment. But a couple of the brokerages did settle, but NAR did not settle until about a week and a half ago. And when they came out, they settled. We're going to talk about what that looks like and now what that actually means for agents. So the crux of the lawsuit was truly, and there's so much information online and you can go read the lawsuit, you can get a lot of data. I am not going to go deep into what the data really is because I want to talk about the ramifications. And so ultimately, what the lawsuit said is sellers didn't know they were paying commission. Now, how many of you have sold a house out there? Just go ahead and throw it in the chat. How many of you have sold a house? Now, in the past, what typically has happened is that the sellers do pay the buyer's commission at closing. So the listing agent negotiates what the commission is going to be that the seller is going to pay. And then from that, usually there is a guaranteed payout to the buyer's agent. That is what has happened in the past. Now, depending on what state you're in or what location, the commissions do change. I mean, the commissions are negotiable. And I mean, they really are. In the past, what has been is that brokerages, not antitrust, but within individual brokerages, have set their own commission structure. Okay, so an owner of a brokerage is allowed to say how much they're going to take a listing for, they're not going to take a listing for. So yes, they've said that. What they're saying is that brokerage to brokerage is over the whole country, is that we have conspired as agents and as brokerages to come in at a certain percent. Now, I mean, as a seller, let me ask you, as a seller, if you did sell your home, did you not know that you were paying the commission out of your proceeds? The one thing I'm going to say is the buyers are the only people who actually bring money to the table. Therefore, the buyers are really the only ones who are paying the commission. Now, we can get kind of into semantics. We can get into the reality of it, but the buyers really truly are paying already the commission. So yeah, people are in here saying, yeah, you've sold a couple homes. So you know that you probably did pay out the buyer's agent. And so that is what this lawsuit was about. It was about the seller saying they didn't know. And then what happened is it turned into a class action lawsuit. And that was kind of like, holy cow, class action. You mean to tell me all these sellers were not aware that they're paying out buyers on the commission? Okay, yeah, it doesn't really matter because it just doesn't matter at this point. So this is what the lawsuit was, what it's called, Sitzer Burnett. If you want to look it up, you can read about it. So it was basically about the participation rule and the practice of agent commission sharing. And it says that if you're in the MLS, you must offer compensation to buyer's agents. Now, I will tell you, MLSs across the country, they have their own rules, they have their own regulations. And there are certain MLSs that are owned by NAR. Okay. The association MLS that I belong to in the Chicagoland area is not an NAR MLS. Okay. So that's kind of a distinction. But the reality of that statement right there is actually true. That is true. In order to put your listing into the MLS, you had to offer compensation. Now, it could be any compensation. It didn't have to be a 2.5%. It didn't have to be a 3%. It didn't have to be anything like that. But in order to use the MLS, yes, you did have to put in an offer of compensation. It could have been $1 if you wanted, truly. But in reality, it wasn't. So there was no grand conspiracy to say, you have to pay 5%, 6%, whatever it is. It was just typically buyer's agents were being paid 2.5% to 3%, depending on the location that you are in. All right. And always, yeah, Jeanette says, always knew about the commission. Right. As sellers, you always knew about the commission. I mean, it is what it is. Whatever. Some of the stuff in the lawsuit is correct. But it's kind of like, well, yeah, I mean, yes, they must offer buyer compensation to agents. Yes, but literally it could have been $1. So, and it didn't matter. Nobody was policing that. So this is what the media is saying. So after a $1.8 billion verdict, the clock is ticking on the 6% real estate commission. Now, a 6% commission rate is, I would say, not standard in a lot of parts of the country. It depends on what part of the country you are in. So some areas it's more, and some areas it's less. But this is just not an accurate statement because that's not really what this is about. So does this mean, hey, as a seller, you're only going to pay 2% or 1% or 5% or 8%, whatever? This is not really what it's about, but this is really clickbait. I mean, this is what you're hearing, is that you get to not pay a 6% commission, whatever that is that you're paying. So the reality is, what are the results of what happened? So what did NAR agree to? And I kind of grade those two out because those aren't really going to pertain to you. The results are that they released liability from NAR. So they're no longer liable for this, and they're going to be paying $418 million. I should not say $418, $418 million in this settlement. So here are the two big things that you need to understand is that compensation has been moved off of the MLS, and now you need written agreements for buyers. Okay, so I want to just stop for a second and see if anybody has any questions about this. I'm going to grab a little drink here. If anybody has a question. Sound is all good. I think our tech is working okay. Okay. So let's first talk about the compensation has been moved off the MLS. Now, this is like, I don't get this because the reality is that we're trying to be more transparent. So now there is no more commission field in the MLS. However, a brokerage can put on their own website how much the commission is that's being paid off. I can text another agent and find out what commission are they paying. I mean, this is so much less transparent. So I don't really understand this. But who knows? Maybe it's going to work its way through. I'm not quite sure. And then written agreements for buyers. And this is huge. This is really, really big. So these are the two things that I'm going to talk about that are going to make a difference for you as a seller or as a buyer. So what does this really mean? So, when we go back and we say, let's talk about the compensation moved off the MLS, what does this really, really mean? And how does it work for you as a seller on a listing? We're going to talk sellers, we're going to talk buyers, but let's talk sellers first. So what does that mean? It means now as a seller, when you sit down with your listing agent is going to say, how much of a commission do you want to pay me? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what I normally charge. Let's talk about, what my services are and everything like that. And then they're going to say, now, would you like to pay a buyer agent commission? And that's the way that it's going to probably be phrased now. Would you like to pay a buyer agent commission? And the seller is going to say, well, tell me what that means. And the listing agent is going to say, well, typically buyers are not engaging their clients before, they're not just opening doors for them. They are opening doors, but they're opening doors without contracts. Okay. So buyers are not going to engage, meaning they're not going to agree to pay a buyer's agent usually until they get to know them and they know for sure that they're moving. So this is what I want you to understand, that this is the reality. This is what the news media doesn't understand, is that buyer's agents are going to pay buyers are going to pay their buyer agents to show them homes. Well, buyers are used to not doing that. So we're talking about a whole huge shift in the narrative of a whole industry, of millions of agents and hundreds of millions of people who have moved. And now we're shifting the whole industry to say the buyer agent is not going to be paid by the seller. So the seller is going to go in. And remember, I said this is a little complicated, so I'm kind of a little bit all over the place, but I'll get to the ending of it. So the seller is going to say, well, I don't want to pay out an agent. And the listing agent is going to say, that's fine, but there is a good chance that that buyer is going to write into the contract that they want a credit back at closing to cover the cost of paying their buyer's agent. Okay, so now is the seller actually still paying the buyer's agent? Well, yeah. And how is that being negotiated? There is going to be a special field in the MLS that says special compensation. And it's going to say, it can say like, seller is willing to provide a credit. We haven't quite worked this out yet, but like, that's not transparent. I mean, so it doesn't make quite much sense. So the seller can decide to pay or not pay. Now, if the seller chooses not to pay, most likely the buyer's agent is going to come and say, well, I want you to give a credit to the buyers of 2.5% to cover my commission. Now, in a hot market, the seller might not have to do that. Okay, the seller might say, forget it, you're on your own. Buyer, you need to pay your agent out of your own pocket, and then you can have the house. And which in a hot market, that might be the case, and it might actually happen. Or a buyer's agent may say, I'm not showing this home because there's no compensation to be paid out, because you cannot force somebody to work for free. And if the buyer has not agreed to pay the buyer's agent and the seller has agreed not to pay the buyer's agent, that agent does not have to show and the home and work for free. It's just not going to happen. So what will happen then is the buyers will go directly to the listing agent. So, and I know as a listing agent, I mean, in Illinois, we have dual agency. Dual agency is the worst. It really should be illegal. I've done dual agency, quite a few times, and it's always bad. Like, it's never good. A lot of times the sellers think, oh, I can get less of a commission if you do dual agency. But in the end, everybody literally hates dual agency. And so, the buyer is going to go straight to the listing agent and is going to say, well, I want to write an offer on the house. Now, the buyers are no longer being represented by anyone. So the listing agent is going to say, great, we've got 10 offers. Go write an offer on the house. And the buyer is going to say, well, how do I do that? And the listing agent is going to say, I don't know, go get a buyer's agent. And the buyer is going to say, but I can't afford to pay a buyer's agent. And the listing agent's going to say, well, too bad, you're out of luck. So the ramifications of this, because I'm going to talk about different price points as well, but the ramifications of this could be devastating to the buyer pool, devastating to especially first-time home buyers and people who do not have a lot of money. Could be devastating to them, which is why I'm so surprised NAR agreed to this, because they are all about everybody needs to get a home. They want affordable housing. This is the worst thing that you could do for affordable housing. So let's pretend that you have a seller who's got a $200,000 home and they owe, $180,000 on their home, and they're selling it because they have to. They don't have the money necessarily for a buyer's agent. So it's not that they're going to be a jerk. They're going to say, I just don't have the money. Well, the buyers who are looking to come and buy a $200,000 home most likely don't have an extra 2.5% to 3% to cover their buyer's agent. So the buyers who are going after the low income homes or the first time home buyers who don't know what they're doing are either they're not going to get a home or they're not going to be represented. They're going to overpay for a home, and you cannot mortgage this commission. So buyers cannot put it on. So let's pretend that a buyer's offering $500,000 for a house. They win the deal. They got the offer. And then they say to the lender, can you put 2.5% or 3% onto my mortgage? They cannot do that. The lenders cannot do that. In addition, anybody who uses a VA cannot, it is a law, cannot pay a buyer's agent. So anybody who has a VA home or who's getting a VA loan cannot have the listing agent or cannot pay their buyer's agent out of pocket. So now, of course, obviously, the law is going to have to change. But the reality of this is it's disrupting a whole system that is going to disadvantage low income and uneducated people on this. Because I will tell you, in reality, the affluent are still going to pay out a commission because they understand the value. They understand the value of paying out a buyer's agent. They want more people coming to the house, so they're going to pay it out, and they get that. It's all in the name of the game. They understand they might get more offers, which means the price might go up. The affluent are going to win in this. I mean, this is why I'm just so stunned that this is the ruling, is that, with the compensation not coming necessarily from the listing agent. Okay. There's a lot more to this. I told you this is very, very complicated, and I'm kind of breaking it down, but I want to get to this other point before I get into kind of the further about how you actually deal with this as a seller or as a buyer. So written agreements for buyers will now be required. Okay. How many of you have bought a home with a buyer's agent and had to sign an agreement? Probably, I'm going to say a few of you. Okay. As buyer's agents, we are supposed to, and we've been told this for years. We've always been told this. We always know we're supposed to do this. Have a buyer agreement that we give to the buyers before we show them a home. Now, the reality is that when a buyer goes on Zillow and hits request, I want to see a home, and a buyer's agent shows up, that buyer is not signing a 3-page buyer agreement to be locked into a deal with that agent who literally they have no idea who it is. None. But that's what now NAR has agreed to, is that we as buyer's agents must have written documentation literally before we open a door. Now, as a buyer, who is going to sign that and say, yes, I've just met you 1 minute ago and I am signing this document and I'm going in the home. And if I buy this house, I'm going to pay you 3%. I mean, this is just where it's like, what the heck is going to happen here? What the heck is going to happen? So now when I'm working with people and it's sort of like dating. I view it as when you're a buyer's agent, you're sort of dating the buyer's dating the agent. You get back and forth, are they being responsive? Are they sending me, homes? Are they calling me? Are they texting me? Are they writing up good offers? Whatever it is, it's dating. Now we're saying this is like, what is it, that first 90 days and married? I don't know. First kiss and then you're married TV show. That's what this is like. You might as well have a reality show on it right now, because that is what is going to happen. The buyer's agents literally have to give a piece of paper to the buyer when they walk into the home saying that we are in a contract and a relationship together. Now, who is going to do that? I'm going to sit, I'm going to have a drink, and let me see some of your comments here and see what you think here. Okay. Yeah, one big mess come July. Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what? You mentioned this, C, is that you did not pay your agent out of pocket. And that's actually because she was saying that she was a VA with VA loans and paid both of our agents dual rep. But here's what did not probably happen is the seller agreed to pay the buyer's agent commission. So that's what's different here, is that as a VA, if you go to a seller and they no longer are paying a buyer agent, then you would have to pay your buyer agent, but legally you're not allowed to. So, when you're looking for a VA loan, I will tell you, anybody who has a VA loan right now, that would be a tough industry to be working in right now, because those agents are thinking, gosh, I'm really not going to get paid. Really, really not going to get paid. And who's going to work for free on that? Okay, so that was like a lot of conversation on that. I've got a lot more here that I'm doing. So I told you about what the history of the industry is that realistically, was there this big coordinated effort between brokerages to keep the commissions high? No, there was not. That's not true. What there was is that a brokerage could charge a standard amount. When I was at my first brokerage, they said you can't go below a certain amount. And it didn't matter if you were new or experienced. So brand new agents came in there and charged the same amount as experienced agents because the brokerage would not let them charge less. Now, as your own brokerage, as your own business, you're allowed to do that. Now, the brokerage I'm at now lets me charge any commission. They don't care. So there are different types of brokerages. And I have talked about this many times. There's basically three different kinds of brokerages. There's the dependent brokerage. So the dependent brokerage has a lot more rules. And that's like your big box brokerages. So that'd be like Coldwell Banker or Berkshire Hathaway or Compass, these big agencies. So those are what's called dependent, and they have a lot of rules. Now, I don't know what their system is right now. I'm sure things are really, really changing. But when I was at a big box brokerage, we could not charge less than a certain percent. So that's true, right? Even though I wasn't as experienced when I started in the industry. When you go to an independent brokerage, it's whatever it's whatever they want to charge. And then I'm at more of an interdependent brokerage, which is kind of a combination, but we still have no restrictions on the dollar, on the commission that we can charge. So what this is going to do to the industry, which I love, which I think is great, because, everything's going to sort of reset. And I do love the fact that everything's going to reset in this industry. What is going to happen is that experienced agents are now going to be able to charge what they're worth, and inexperienced agents are going to have to charge what they are worth. I want you guys to remember that. Like, that is the biggest thing that comes out of this. So yes, you can pay more or you can pay less. And if it's really, really important for you to pay less money, then you are going to get a less experienced agent. In the past, in the history, it didn't matter what level of experience that agent is. And that's why this industry is so, it has such a bad name. And you guys know, you've probably watched my other video about the industry, about why we get such a bad name. This truly is the reason, is because inexperienced agents are charging the same amount as experienced agents. So imagine you go to somebody and you're like, you know what, I'm only going to pay you $1,000 to list my home. And that person's like, well, you know what, I'm a brand new agent, I'll do that. And you're like, great, you know what you're getting. You know what you're getting. In the past, that didn't happen. You were paying basically kind of the same amount if they were experienced or inexperienced. So that's really important. So who gets hurt the most in this? Truly the buyers. Truly the buyers. The buyer agents are going to figure this out. Okay. And I've heard a lot of really, really interesting things going on here. The buyer agents could do a flat fee. So, I could charge you $50 for every door I open for you. I could charge you $1,000 per contract I write that goes through. And then if there's any commission that's being paid out from the listing, I could rebate it back to you. There's a lot of really, really interesting ideas going on. The buyer agents will be okay. And what this is going to do is clean the industry out, because I will tell you, an inexperienced agent, there is zero chance they're going to be able to have a conversation about this like an experienced agent can. An experienced agent says, listen, I'm going to figure it out. So if you're on like Facebook or social media and you're seeing agents saying, bring it on, like, I know what I'm doing here, that's because that agent understands, supply and demand, understands how the industry works, and is confident in their own abilities. If you see an agent out there that's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? This is terrible, we need to keep it like this, most likely they're inexperienced. They just don't understand. So the agents are going to figure it out. The buyers are going to be really hurt. The buyers right now are going to pay more money. I really, really, really believe that. And the reason why is because, especially if your market's hot. If your market's hot, there's no question the buyer is going to have to pay more money in order to get that house with an experienced agent and win a multiple offer. I mean, we're talking, I have offers coming in. I had a house, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we had 20 offers. 20 offers. If any individual buyer came to me and wanted me to write up that offer, I would have said, absolutely not. Let's pretend we weren't paying out a buyer commission. And that guy came to me and said, I want you to write up. I would say, I'm not going to be a dual agent in a 20 multiple offer situation. In addition, I don't know you. I haven't vetted you. I don't know your lender. I don't know a thing about you. All I know is you literally just want me to be a transactional agent and write up your contract. That is not going to go over well with listing agents when I've got 20 offers to choose from. And then the buyer's going to say, oh, well, you know what? I want that commission to be, credited back to the seller. That may or may not work. Because I will tell you, any buyer who comes to me as a listing agent who is unrepresented, who doesn't know what they're doing, is not getting the right representation to know how difficult it is to get from offer to closing. So that will be my recommendation, is to say, yes, you may be getting more money on this deal. However, this person is not represented, and I don't know a single thing about them. I don't know who they're talking to. I don't know if they've done this 10 times. I don't know if they've backed out from 4 deals. I have no idea. So the buyers who are definitely really going to get hurt are the low income buyers, because most likely those lower price point homes that are, $100,000, $200,000, they're not going to pay out a buyer commission. They're just saying to say, we're not going to. But those are the buyers who are only putting, 5% down. They can't afford an additional few percent to pay out their buyer's agent. So what are they going to do? What are they going to do? They're going to go straight to the listing agent, and then they will not be represented, because dual agency is not good, especially when the listing agent is not going to be paid for all their work and can't vouch for them. This is why it's important to have 2 agents on both sides. So let me just stop and take a look here. Let's see. Big picture of this. Okay, hold on a second. How do you choose an agent to sell your home? Any videos on this? I've got a lot of videos on that for sure. I also have a link, Warwick. Maybe you can pop that link in there, where I have me and my team actually vet somebody out for you who can find an agent for you for sure. Is the big picture of this NAR settlement, the house price will stay the same and the seller will make more money? the buyer agent will get screwed. So that's a great question. And this has been a debate between agents right now. Is the house sale going to be the same, or is it going to be more, or is it going to be less? So it depends on the market that you're in. Now, if your market is hot, most likely the seller will win. So in all of this, who is the big winner? The sellers may win. They may win, okay? If the market's hot. If the market is cold, I don't know if they're going to win on this. I really, really don't. So if the market is hot, the buyers are going to lose out because the buyers now have to pay. Like, there are a lot of people who might pay cash or who might be willing to pay their buyer's agents. But now a buyer who's trying to finance a house and literally only has 5% or 10% to put down now is to come up with an additional 2 to 3% that can't be financed. They literally have to come to the table with $10,000 cash to pay their buyer agent. I mean, that's who's really, really going to get hurt. Now, are prices going to go up? Are they going to go down? Well, the reality is that appraisers for the last whatever years are appraising homes that have sold with both a buyer and a seller commission being paid out at the table. So now the question is what is the appraiser going to do? Is the appraiser going to say, well, that isn't actually the value of the home because you paid out a buyer's agent $20,000 on this home, and on this home, you're not. So what is that? Is that the value of the home? Is that the value of the service that you got? We're not there yet. We just don't know how this is going to play out yet. These are a lot of questions. Okay, let me just look here. Yep. So yeah, interviewing 3 agents, you pick the one you like. I think that's great. To pick, I definitely recommend talking to a few different agents. And the conversation you want to have around the commission conversation is you want them to be honest. You just want to have like this type of conversation, like what's going to happen. And if they've got this like mapped out plan, and they're like, and you're just not feeling like they're being authentic and real about it, the reality is that we don't know. As agents, we just do not know right now what's going to happen. All right. So E&L, love that you're here. First time selling. Don't even know what I'm supposed to know. So you know what? I want you to subscribe to my channel because all I do is talk about selling your home. Literally, that is all I do. Sell your home. I have a team that works with buyers, but all of my content is devoted to selling your home. I also have a seller's playbook that will show you the low cost, high return updates you need to make to sell your home and the high cost, low return updates I don't want you to make. So Work's going to drop this into the chat here for you guys. It's also in my description. You can find it pretty much anywhere there. Go ahead and download the seller's playbook, and that will talk to you a little bit about that. But my focus on my channel is basically the 5 pillars of selling your home. There are only 5 steps you need to know to sell your home. I talk about that in a lot of my other videos too. So if you are not sure where to start, this is the place. Subscribe. I got a lot of videos coming out. This is specifically about the commissions. Julie asked a question. As a seller, why would you not want to offer buyer's commission? If it becomes a credit, it may cost you more than if you offered a set percentage from the get-go. Correct. I mean, it's true. So why would you not want to offer a buyer's commission? Because people are hearing the commission stories on the news and they think that this is going to save them money. We don't really know. And in addition, if you're in a soft market and you're not offering a buyer agent commission, it could be a real nightmare for you. So I want you to add that up. How much is your buyer's commission? Maybe it's $5,000, maybe it's $15,000. Is that amount of money worth it to you to have this deal go smoothly? I can tell you, if you're not offering a buyer agent commission and it's a slower market, things are not flying off the shelves here, it is going to be a rough road for you. It is going to be painful. And most likely what will happen is that an agent will actually come in and write that into the contract. And then as a seller, you're still going to have to pay it. So I'm going to answer a couple questions, but I have sort of a little bit of I'm going to say a solution that I've heard a couple agents talk about that I'm going to talk about in a minute. So I was told that because the buyer's agent is technically being paid by the seller, the buyer's agent ultimately represents the seller and doesn't have to represent the best interests of the buyer. So Sandra, that's a great question because that's totally not true. And I would love to know who told you that. Okay. And not in a bad way, but that's what I'm saying is that when you look at the headlines, I want you really to kind of dig down a little bit deeper and figure out what's true and what's not true. So, the buyer's agent, yes, they're being paid by the seller at closing out of their proceeds. However, remember, the buyer is the only one who brings money to the table. So the buyer is the only one who actually is paying money. Okay. We're just going to start there. I know we can fight about this all day, but whatever. So the buyer's agent never represents the seller. And when I'm working for my buyer clients, I am very, very, very clear and very honest with them when I think there's a house that's overpriced or they shouldn't buy based upon what they told me originally in our first meeting, or if it just doesn't meet, or if the resale is going to be bad. I mean, I just did this a couple of weeks ago. I sat down with a buyer and I said, listen, this house is so far overpriced. In addition, it's in an area that I don't think is what you told me that you're looking for. This is not, when you said what you were looking for in a house, this was not it. And it's $100,000 more than you told me you wanted to spend. So, a buyer's agent, a good buyer's agent, one who has experience, not a shyster, not one of those people who's a quick talking, fast salesperson, a good agent knows there's more to this job than the commission, because what comes around goes around. And any agent who is good will make sure that as a buyer, you are represented well. And they're telling you the truth because they know that their reputation means a lot, especially in small towns. If you have a bad experience, you are going to badmouth that agent all around town. Good agents understand this. Inexperienced agents don't. I don't want to say bad agents. I want to say inexperienced agents. They just don't understand. So that's not true. Buyer's agents, a good buyer's agent will represent you and give you their honest truth about what a house is worth. And I mean, over the last year, I've had to tell people you're paying way over appraised and market value. Are you sure you want to do that? You sure you want to do that? And they'll say yes or no. And if they say yes, I'll say, great, then that's on you. It's your decision. It's not mine. So I put all of my advice out there and I allow my buyers and my sellers to choose. Okay. So I tried to sell, but did not accept a low offer. I learned that the realtor agent will ask you if you want to maximize money, sell quickly. Okay. So this is something that I talk about all the time. Literally just had a conversation about this today. So there is a fine line as a real estate agent about being a consultant and being a salesperson. And so as experienced agents, we are consultants, but we're also really good salespeople. So as a seller or a buyer, you don't know which person you're really talking to. And that's why we can come across looking like, we're lying, and you don't know what to believe. Truly, 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 I'm going to tell you, proud liberal 24, I want you to watch my videos, because when you watch the videos, I talk about a lot of this stuff. And agents who tell you the real price, of a home, which it might be lower, probably are telling you the truth. They really are. Yes, agents want to sell a home fast, but the reason why is the longer your home sits on the market, the less money you are going to get. Now, do you believe that? You may not believe that, but after working with thousands of people, and writing all these contracts, this is the truth. This is the absolute truth. The longer your house sits on the market, the less you'll sell it for, and the more stress you're going to have. Again, a lot of other videos that talk about this, and just make sure you subscribe to the channel. So depending on what you say, your agent will recommend what renovations to make, example, paint, refinish, remove wallpaper, declutter, etc. Yes. Now that is true, because if I have somebody who's like, I want to get the highest price possible for a house, I say, great, then you need to make sure that you are doing everything to the house to get it updated. If they said, I'm really stressed, this is an estate, I don't have the time for it, then we talk about what price that needs to be. So I actually have a full class on this that you guys can, usually people kind of follow me a little bit and then they go to the class, which is basically the 5 pillars of how to sell your home. And these are the only 5 things you truly, truly need to understand. And what I'm teaching is really not what any other agents are teaching out there. So Work can put the Work, if you can put, it's Ready, Set, Sell Masterclass, but Work can put that link down there if you guys are interested. So biggest problem now is HGTV. Many people expect your home to show like a home on HGTV. I got comments on carpet color for a storage room, the tree in the front yard. Yep, totally. And I did a video on that as well about HGTV and how that sort of ruined the real estate market. And it's true. Okay, so getting back kind of to this commission conversation. I know this has been a little confusing. I want to just talk a little bit more. Will this save the buyers or the sellers money? It might. It might not. We're not quite totally sure. The sellers could win. The buyers, I don't think the buyers are going to win here. I think it's going to be a much, much more difficult road for the buyers because as agents, out of 1.5 million agents in this country, probably only 20% of them work full time. And so you're going to get a lot of agents who are leaving the industry. And those are the agents who would work for free or work for cheap. And then you're going to get the experienced agents who are left who are going to be like, no, you're going to have to pay me. You're going to have to pay me in order to work. Now, again, there might be some creative things that are going to happen. I want to talk to you about a creative thing that's going to happen with sellers. I'm just going to take a drink real quick. Okay. So I heard this. I think this actually might be a really, really good idea. Is that I haven't really played this out yet much. So in July, what's going to happen is compensation is going away in the MLS. Now, in our MLS in the Chicagoland area, we are not an NAR affiliated MLS. So I think it can stay. However, I'm sure it will be gone. So MLS, as of in July, there will be no more compensation offered in the MLS. Okay, making it completely not transparent. I don't understand, but you can have a special compensation line in there that says, make your offer with a credit for such and such, whatever. We haven't figured that quite out yet. So as a listing agent, I can go to the seller and I can say, okay, here's the reality. And basically I'll give them this whole conversation. This is what's realistically going to happen. A buyer may come to you and still ask for the credit, whatever. Most likely buyers are not getting a contract signed with their buyer agent early. In addition, people are going to come directly to me. How do you want to handle all these things? That's a conversation. And then I'll say, okay, let's decide on how much commission you want to pay based upon what I charge. I'll give my commission and they'll say, well, I don't know if I want to pay that, whatever, back and forth. Now, from that commission, what I can do as the listing agent is I can say, you know what, we are going to hold on what we're paying the buyer's agent. So let's pretend a buyer's agent comes and says, we want you to pay us 2% at closing. Okay. And for the commission, and they write a $500,000 offer. And then let's say somebody comes and says, I want you to pay 3% at closing on a $500,000 offer. What I will have is the ability as the listing agent to work with the seller to come up with what is the best offer for them. Now that will mean that my full commission won't be, 5, 6, 7%, but it will mean that I will now have the ability to have a negotiating conversation with the seller once those contracts come in and we see. Now, listen, if a home sells like that, and I literally haven't had to do anything with that, I might be willing to even reduce my commission more. Now, this has not happened in the industry. That's why I think this is good for the industry. This type of thing has not happened before. And so that will, let's say somebody says, okay, Katie, you know what? We're going to pay you 6%. And from that, we're going to see what comes in. Well, let's say nobody comes in with an offer of compensation to the buyer's agent. I might say, okay, yeah, you know what? I'm going to cut my commission down for you to a certain amount. And now it becomes another negotiation. But let's say the house has been an impossible home. Let's say, you've had 3 deals fall through. You've got it to closing. It's been super, super difficult to get to that point. I might say, you know what, this has been a really, really difficult deal. And because of my experience, I deserve more money than this. Okay. So we're figuring our way through this right now. But that's kind of a creative way, because then in the MLS, what we could say in the special compensation is bring your offers of compensation included in your contract. And then we just lay them all out and we sort of look at them. So we'll see how this kind of plays out a little bit. Okay, buyer's agents deserve to be paid. People expect something for nothing, greed. I agree. The problem is that some buyers are not going to have the money. They just won't. They've been saving for a down payment for 20% on a, $700,000 home. They've worked really hard. They have just that amount of cash. So on a $700,000 home, are they going to come up with an additional, $15,000, $20,000 out of pocket plus their down payment? That's where this whole conversation about what's going on is really going to hurt the industry, and it is going to resettle. And experienced agents are going to be fine. We'll figure it out. Inexperienced agents are going to leave the industry, which I think is good as well. I think that, I think it will be eventually fall into a good place, but getting there could be very, very painful and very, very difficult. Okay. So did we already talk about this? We did a little bit. So how will buyer brokers get paid? So a fixed fee commission paid direct. So let's pretend you're going to find a buyer's agent and they say, well, you have to pay me 2.5% or 3% if I find you a home. You could say, you know what, I'm going to pay you $100 every door you open, and I'll pay you $1,000, for every contract you write. But I want you to credit me back if there's any additional commission, at the closing. So then maybe you're doing that, but then the buyers are paying up front. Are the buyers going to want to pay up front when this has been realistically free? They haven't had to pay anything. I mean, that is part of the lawsuit, is that agents can't say they're being paid for free, which a lot of agents or said that they work for free. So that's kind of a tricky thing, but I mean, what realistically is going to happen there? So the concession from the seller, and then a portion of the listing brokerage compensation, which is what I've talked about. So they can still be paid by the seller, but now there's no field for it to be put in there in the MLS, which makes it a lot less transparent. And I don't understand. That just doesn't make much sense to me at all. Do you think this will ever result in a flat fee system? Buyer pays $5,000. So I do. I think there are going to be a lot of agents who start working on a flat fee system now, which is fine. It could work, but the reality is that now an experienced agent can charge $20,000, $30,000, whereas a less experienced agent is going to charge less. So then you're going to be faced with, do we want more experience? Is it a hot market? Do I need a buyer's agent who's going to work really well? Well, then I might pay more. And I will tell you, being a buyer's agent is painful. I mean, it is so painful. And I'll tell you a reality. So we have a saying in the industry. It says buyers are liars. The reason we say buyers are liars is because they don't really know what they want. It doesn't mean that they're bad or anything like that. It means they literally just have no idea what they want. And that's fine. But as a buyer's agent, you have to get them to that solution. So like, for example, a buyer will click on a home on Zillow and say, I want to go see this house. And then they go see the house and they're like, oh, I really like this. And then they say to the agent who's already shown them a house, oh, you know what? My sister is a real estate agent. And they're like, why didn't you say that before we showed you the house? Oh, I didn't think about it. Well, so that's like kind of a phrase. So working with buyers is very, very painful because they are all over the place. And because there is no contract that we sign that says you are guaranteeing paying me. That is going to change. Buyer's agent life is going to be much better because now we have to say when we go to a house is that you have to sign this agreement. Now, that agreement can be a one-page document for a one-page showing. Like just a showing document saying, I'm showing you this house. If this house, you decide to buy it, I get paid or I am your agent. Like that's great for the industry. That's really good. But also we will know upon going to that one showing whether or not compensation will be paid out. So that's actually really good for buyer's agents. That will help. But being a buyer's agent is very, very difficult. You're going all day, 24/7, showing homes when you have kids' games, things like that. And so there will be very few buyer's agents who stay doing this at a high level unless they have a true system and buyers agree to pay them because they're not going to work for free. I talked to a loan officer in my area. He said most buyers in my area have to offer 10% over asking price, even if the home is $1.5 million. Yes. Right now in this industry, that is true. And so that buyer, if the seller is not paying out a commission, that buyer is going to have to give another 2.5%, 3%. You're talking about a lot of money, and they have to come to the table with that. It cannot be mortgaged. It cannot be mortgaged. So yeah, it's the lenders. We got to figure something out here. So as a seller, will you make more? You might. You might. You know who the big winner is here? Who's the big winner? The attorneys. The attorneys are the big winners here. I mean, they're trying to cut our commission. What about what they're making on this class action? I mean, they are truly the big winners here. And the whole system is going to revamp for sure. And things will sort of fall into place. We'll figure it out as a seller. So when you see those headlines that say 6%, no longer, you don't have to pay it. Well, I mean, okay, you might not pay 6%, but you might not make as much money when you go to sell your home for a lot of different reasons. So it's just sort of like, nah, just take what you read with a grain of salt. All right. And then as a buyer, will you save more? Absolutely not. This is going to be tough for buyers. It's going to be really tough for buyers. I suggest that if you're looking to buy a house, you're working with an experienced agent and you have this conversation with them right up front, kind of just this conversation that I'm having right now. So how do you negotiate as a seller? I mean, kind of what I said is I like the idea of the listing agent and the seller's agent saying, okay, this is how much I'm willing to pay in whole. You and the buyer broker go fight it out. That's also good too. I also like that as well. So that could work. You know, when you say to the listing agent, you know, I'm willing to pay this amount or this amount. Now keep in mind, those agents might say, forget it. I'm not working for less than X amount. And that's their right. And that is what you're going to find a lot more of. You're going to find a lot more less experienced agents willing to take less money in order to get the deal. The experienced agents know their value. They're probably not going to cut their commission that much. So you need to decide, is it worth it for you? You know, as a seller, make more money, less money, have it done quickly and correctly? These are all questions that I want you to ask yourself. How do you negotiate as a buyer? It is going to be very difficult. Most likely a buyer is going to write into the contract to pay their buyer's agent. If it's a hot market and multiple offers, that buyer will lose out on the house, especially to a cash buyer. It's just, I mean, this is bad for buyers. This is bad for buyers. So like I said, we're figuring our way through it. And I want you to have an honest conversation with any agent that you're talking to. And, you know, if an agent says, oh, we've got this all figured out, I mean, that's probably a tell right there because we don't really know. They might have some good ideas, but the transition right now, all the people that we're working with right now at this moment have not signed a buyer's agreement to pay us a percentage, right? That they're in their minds, they're not thinking about this. But if they close after July, we have to figure that we have to get them to sign this contract, this agreement. Are they going to? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I'm not real sure. A couple other questions. Nobody is the winner. That is true. I think, like I said, I think it will help the industry as a whole get a better reputation because inexperienced agents are going to get out because now they can't take a 5 or 6% listing and you know, they're just not experienced enough to earn it. They just won't. I was going to say the same, that listing agents, what about the lender's commission? Can they cut that also? That is a very, very good question, Brooke. I don't know. And I think the lenders right now are probably coming up with some new things, I'm thinking as well. Are they, I mean, the big thing would change this is if lenders could finance the buyer agent commission. That would change this. I have not heard any lenders say that's in the works. But I mean, this is all happening very, very fast. So it could be, and I'm just not sure yet. Do you think this decision will be appealed in the future? No, I think this is because here's the thing. It doesn't matter anymore because you have 1.5 million agents who are like, oh my God, how am I going to manage this? How am I going to make this work? You know, and we are all adjusting our businesses right now because at this point, it doesn't matter anymore because we have to just run with it. We have to keep our businesses going. So even if it's appealed, they've all, you know, I think there's only 2 companies that maybe haven't settled yet. You know, so this is happening. This is happening because the NAR settled, you know, and the DOJ was a participant in this case. So they settled. I mean, this is what's happening. The whole industry is turned over and we're just, you know, we'll figure it out. What percentage would that amount be? 6%. Is that appropriate? So you know what's so funny is that as an agent, one thing that has always, always, always been told to us is we are not allowed to discuss commissions with other agents or people because of antitrust violations. And so, and that's true. I mean, for all the years I've been in business, if I am in a meeting and we start talking about commissions, just commissions in general, if we start talking, people like antitrust, antitrust. I'm like, we're literally just talking about like commission. We're not talking about price fixing, but literally, so what is appropriate? I don't actually know if I'm allowed to say because of antitrust, because I could get in real big trouble for that. I don't know. So what I would say is typically in the past, it's been, 5 to 6 to 7. I've heard 4, but that's a buyer and a seller. Redfin does a lot lower, but they're very, very low service. Not, so it's, you kind of get what you pay for. I think you can easily get 5% for both sides. I have no idea right now. I have no idea. We might get sellers who are like, you know what? I want the best agent in the area and I'm willing to pay this amount and I'm paying them a lot of money. And then you as a listing agent, I want you to give some to the buyer's agent, depending on what you think and my best offer. Could happen there too. What advice do you have for a seller who is looking to list in the next few weeks, max 3 weeks? Okay. I hope you have an agent already. You are going to subscribe to this channel right now, and you are going to watch all of the videos that I have and download my seller playbook and make sure you're in good shape with that as well. Links are everywhere on my site. So in 3 weeks, the best advice for a seller, get your price right. That is the best advice I'm going to give anybody right now. Get your price correct. And an agent is not just telling you what it should be to get the house sold quickly. An agent is probably telling you what the real price is. So if the listing agent is charging the seller 5 to 6%, should they offer to pay that to the buyer's agent? That is a question that's going to happen that the sellers and the seller's agent will have a conversation about for sure. Unless your home is updated with the appropriate paint colors, you need to do reno first unless you want to sell as is. Not necessarily. Yes, sometimes it depends on how much money you want to get. So I have something I call the seller stress spectrum. And what that basically is the higher price that you want for the house above market value. So you need to know like what market value is. You need to know what appraised value is. And the higher you want, the more renovations you usually have to do. So are you netting? Are you making more money? So it's all about what is needed. So as far as what are you going to do in 3 weeks to sell your home, make sure you have a good agent. If you don't, I've got a link. Work will drop that in there for you. Just what to update and what not to update. What I can say is, as a seller, you want that house looking fresh. You want it clean, 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 clean. That is the best thing I can tell you. Go out to the street and I want you to look at the house from the street and I want you to say, I am looking at this like a buyer. And once you do that, I promise you, you're going to be like, oh my God, this looks terrible. This looks horrible. And also the other thing, if your doorbell is broken, you need to fix it. Okay, your doorbell is the very first impression. And if it's broken, people think, if this is broken, what else is broken in the house? I'll tell you, my doorbell's broken. I know. My doorbell's broken. We're having a major electrical issue with it. So, but we're not selling. We're not selling right now. But I laugh every time I think our doorbell is broken. We're figuring out. We're figuring out. So, but that is a key. Like you have to make sure your doorbell is working. Do we have any other last questions in here? Did I get to everything? Did I answer everything? Yeah. So if you're thinking about selling, you want to make sure that if you're thinking about selling right now, honestly, the person who just asked that, go to my link that Work just put in there right now. And that link is just a free class about how to sell it. I talk about my 5 pillars in there. There are 5 pillars. One is selling with strategy. The next one is what to update in your home. The next is staging. Are you going to stage? The next is pricing. And the last one is agents. Those 5 things are the only things you need to know in order to sell your home. After working in this industry for so long, I truly, truly have narrowed it down. And I don't believe there's a single other person out there who is giving this information. It is, selling a home can be really traumatic. And I say that, and I feel for you guys out there, especially with this new NAR thing. But what I can say is an experienced agent is your best path to, and educating yourself is your best path to making the most amount of money and selling fast. Again, if you need an agent, go ahead and pop that pop that in there real quick. And you can download to get an agent. Are there any other questions? I mean, I hit that right an hour. So, and our tech was good. We did it. If you watch one of my other videos, tech didn't quite work, and I was all a complete mess. So what I want you guys to do is I want to make sure you subscribe, okay? If you have not subscribed, I want to make sure you subscribe. I've got a lot of great content, if I do say so myself, coming out. I mean, the video I recorded the other day, I finished it. I was like, oh, that was good. That was good, because I want to educate all of you. I want all of you to, sell your home fast and for more money, truly as stress-free as possible. You guys can always reach out to me. All my information is in my description. And unless anybody has anything else, that's it. You guys rock. Thank you for paying attention, and make sure you subscribe. Don't leave without subscribing. All right. Love all you guys.